Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going beyond just the usual language learning tips. Think of this as more of a masterclass in language acquisition.
Mhm.
This is really for you if you're that relentlessly curious learner, the one who wants that shortcut from just being okay to, well, genuine mastery.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the mission today. We want to help you move past the vocabulary lists, the grammar drills, and actually develop this kind of inner analytical mechanism.
So you become your own teacher, essentially.
Precisely. Your own most effective teacher. We're diving straight into the cognitive principles that really separate the merely fluent from the true masters.
Okay, so where do we start? What's the foundation?
It all starts, interestingly, in the mind. Our sources really emphasize this. True fluency, that deep mastery, isn't built just from textbooks. It's built on something we're calling analytical curiosity.
Analytical curiosity. Okay, unpack that for us.
Well, it's about the psychology of it. The most successful learners, they don't just accept a rule because someone told them that's the rule.
Yeah.
They treat the entire language like this huge, fascinating puzzle.
Right.
So when they hit something weird, a strange idiom, an exception to a rule, a contradiction, they don't just get frustrated and, give up.
They don't see it as a roadblock.
Exactly. They see it as a clue. A vital clue pointing towards some deeper linguistic logic or maybe a cultural reason behind why things are said a certain way.
Okay, so let's make this concrete. You hear a phrase like, I don't know, the classic, it's raining cats and dogs, instead of just thinking, wow, English is bizarre.
Right. The question becomes analytical. Why did native speakers start phrasing it like this? What's the history? Is there some forgotten metaphor at play? What drove people to describe the world this specific way?
That's a huge mindset shift, isn't it?
It really is. Because it forces you beyond just simple translation, word for word swapping, and it pushes you to actually start thinking within the structures and logic of English itself.
You're basically problem solving constantly.
Constantly. And that investigative work, that mental effort, is exactly what makes the language actually stick. It becomes part of your own thinking process.
So that curiosity, that investigation, is the engine, which brings us to something else that feels like an obstacle but is actually fuel. Productive failure.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of learners, myself included sometimes, tend to retreat into these very safe, predictable sentences because, frankly, we're afraid of messing up. What do the sources say about flipping that fear?
This is probably the most critical cognitive concept we need to internalize today. We have to completely reframe what an error actually is. Fluency isn't built despite mistakes. It's built because of them. Necessary failure.
Okay, necessary failure, but why is it necessary? If I study the rule really hard beforehand, can I just avoid the mistake and, save myself the embarrassment or the cognitive effort?
This is a really good question. And it gets to the core difference between just knowing something passively, like knowing a rule,
Yeah.
and being able to use it actively, competently. When you make a mistake, say a grammatical error, and then you get corrected or you self-correct, that moment has a much higher emotional and cognitive intensity than just reading the rule in a book.
That feeling of, oh, drat, I got it wrong.
Exactly. That slight discomfort, that mental friction, that's what signals to your brain, pay attention. This needs fixing.
Yeah.
And that intensity makes the correction stick in a way passive learning often doesn't. Errors are literally the engine driving the learning process forward.
So the aim isn't perfection, it's more feedback. Maximize the opportunities for correction by just speaking more, even if it's messy.
Precisely. Optimize your learning by increasing the rate at which you generate errors and receive feedback. Speak broadly, speak often.
Okay, intellectually, that makes total sense. But let's be real, speaking broadly, trying new things, it often leads to this feeling of just total overwhelm, right? The cognitive load.
Oh, absolutely.
They're trying to find the word, apply the grammar, get the pronunciation right, and listen to the other person. It feels like your brain just freezes.
That overload is completely normal. The working memory just can't juggle that many new things simultaneously. And that's where the brain's own sort of natural complexity management system kicks in. Clunking. Effective learners, consciously or unconsciously, start to realize that fluent speech isn't really about stringing individual words together one by one.
It's more like building blocks.
Exactly. Prefabricated blocks.
Yeah.
They stop memorizing single words in isolation and start memorizing these functional language units, chunks, that act like single items in your memory.
I can see how that's more efficient, definitely. But isn't there a risk there if you rely too much on these pre-made chunks? Does that maybe stifle your ability to be creative or flexible with grammar later on? Is it just swapping word lists for phrase lists.
That's a fair point, a thoughtful caution.
Yeah.
But chunking, when done right, is actually much smarter than simple rote memorization because it mirrors how native speakers actually process and produce language.
Ah,
You're not memorizing random phrases. You're internalizing common structures, patterns, collocations that native speakers use without thinking. It dramatically reduces the mental construction time. Think of it as grabbing a pre-assembled doorway instead of laying every single brick.
right. So, can you give us some examples? What kind of chunks should listeners start looking out for, or maybe even memorizing?
Sure. There are several types. First, you have fixed phrases, things like by and large, or as a matter of fact, or to cut a long story short, you just pull the whole thing out.
Got it.
Second, collocational pairs. These are words that just naturally go together, like heavy traffic, not strong traffic, or a deep sigh, not usually a strong sigh.
Hmm.
And third, things like sentence openers and closers.
Yeah.
Useful frameworks like generally speaking, or on the one hand, or in conclusion, it's clear that.
Okay.
Using these frees up your mental bandwidth. Your brain isn't struggling with basic structure. It can focus on the specific meaning, the nuance, the more challenging parts of what you want to say. It really cuts down fatigue and boosts spontaneity.
That's a really practical way to handle that freeze moment. And it leads us perfectly into the next analytical area, really mastering collocation. Our sources call this the architectural blueprint of the language.
Yes, and this is where that analytical curiosity really pays off.
Mm.
Collocation is all about which words naturally, habitually keep company together. Why do some combinations sound right and others just slightly off?
Like our heavy traffic example.
Exactly. And analysis is much better than just trying to memorize endless lists here because it starts to reveal the subtle associations, the connotations that native speakers feel instinctively.
Let's dig into that with an example. The words strong and powerful, they seem similar.
Very similar in core meaning, right? But collocations dictate usage. We say strong tea, meaning intense flavor, but you'd never ever hear powerful tea. It just sounds wrong.
Right. Weird.
Conversely, you talk about a powerful engine, meaning high capacity for work or movement. You wouldn't usually say a strong engine in quite the same way. And even when both words might technically work, the choice signals a different nuance. Think about arguments. A strong argument usually implies it's well-supported, logical, lots of evidence.
Solid.
Yeah, solid. Whereas a powerful argument that suggests it has a really big impact on the audience, maybe emotionally, or it persuades them strongly, the focus shifts from internal structure to external effect.
That's such a great distinction. I actually remember trying to praise someone's presentation once. I said it was strong when I probably meant powerful because it really moved people. And there was this tiny, almost imperceptible awkwardness.
When you have that awkwardness, that's your own analytical system giving you instant feedback. It felt off. That's the feeling we need to pay attention to.
Okay, so how can listeners actively practice this?
Here's a really practical analytical task tip.
Mhm.
Every time you learn a new keyword, especially adjectives, adverbs, maybe verbs, make it a habit to quickly look up or note down the 3 most common nouns or verbs adjectives it collocates with.
Just 3?
Just 3 to start. It's manageable. If you consistently do that, you're shifting from passive vocabulary collection to active pattern recognition. It will genuinely revolutionize how natural you sound.
Okay, that's a great habit to build. Now, let's tackle something that causes a lot of frustration. Phrasal verbs.
Ah, yes. The bane of many learners' existence.
They feel like these single concepts disguised as multiple words, and there just seem to be thousands of them. Random, almost.
They are absolutely essential for sounding natural, especially in conversation, but they only seem chaotic from the outside. The analytical approach here is key. Instead of memorizing each one as a unique item, try to understand the core conceptual meaning of the particle, the little preposition or adverb attached to the verb.
Like up, down, out, in.
Exactly. How does that particle change or modulate the meaning of the base verb? If you grasp that, you're not memorizing 10,000 separate rules. You're analyzing a system of meaning modification.
Okay, show us how that works. Let's take up. What does up tend to imply?
Up very often suggests completion, finishing something, or moving towards a higher, better, or more complete state. Think about finish up, clear up, like tidying, cheer up, speak up, even look up a word. You're bringing the information up to your awareness, or things are looking up means improving.
Okay, I see the pattern. Completion or improvement. What about its opposite, down?
Down often implies reduction, decrease, or sometimes subjugation or negativity. So calm down, slow down, turn down an offer, rejecting it, bringing it low. Put down someone, criticize. Break down, stop functioning.
Makes sense. Reduction. One more. What about out?
Out frequently suggests removal, extrusion, disclosure, or moving something from inside to outside. Like, we figure out a problem, we extract the solution, we find out information, we speak out, making internal thoughts external. We run out of milk, it's gone, move beyond the available limit. We work out at the gym, expending energy outwards.
Wow. Okay. Thinking about the particle's core meaning, that genuinely shifts the focus. Instead of rote learning, it becomes about inference.
Exactly. You can often make a very educated guess about a phrasal verb you've never even encountered before, just by understanding the base verb and the typical function of the particle.
So if we buy into this, analyzing the particle system, what's the practical takeaway for studying this week? Less flashcards, more analysis.
Pretty much. Prioritize analytical study over just high-volume review. When you encounter a new phrasal verb, don't just memorize its translation. Ask yourself, okay, how is this particle up, down, out, whatever, changing the core meaning of the verb I already know? And then maybe quickly test that particle's meaning with a couple of other verbs. Does the pattern hold?
That's a much more engaging way to learn them. Okay, moving beyond the words themselves, advanced fluency is also about the music of the language, right? The tone, the rhythm, the intention behind the words.
Absolutely critical. This is where observational acuity comes in. Really listening not just to what is said, but how it's said. We need to tune into what linguists call paralinguistic features. Things like stress, pitch, intonation, pacing, even pauses. They carry a huge amount of meaning that isn't captured in the written words.
We've all experienced this. Think of a simple phrase like, oh, that's just great. If I say it brightly with rising pitch, oh, that's just great. It means fantastic news. But if I draw it out, lower the pitch, maybe add some sarcasm, oh, that's just great. It signals the exact opposite, a total disaster.
Precisely. The words are identical, but the music flips the meaning entirely. Stress is another huge one. Think about the difference between I said you could go, emphasizing the permission was given, versus I said you could go, emphasizing the action allowed.
Right. The focus shifts completely.
Analyzing where native speakers place that emphasis, how their pitch rises and falls, it gives you direct access to their underlying attitude and intent. That's a hallmark of really sophisticated communication.
So we've talked about analyzing the system collocations, particles. We've talked about analyzing the music tone, stress. If your ear gets better at picking up these patterns, does that help with the final hurdle? Actually producing complex sentences spontaneously yourself.
It absolutely helps,
Okay.
massively. When your brain starts to process the rhythm, the intonation, the common word pairings more automatically, it frees up cognitive resources.
Yeah.
Your working memory isn't quite so overloaded.
Okay.
And that allows you to dedicate more mental energy to the task of moving from just understanding or recognizing good English to actually producing detailed, complex, spontaneous output yourself. But you still need a strategy for that moment.
A strategy for generating complexity on the fly.
Yes. One really effective technique is what we call the expansion method, or sometimes the three-tier answer.
Okay, the three-tier answer. How does that work when someone asks you a question, maybe a complex one?
You deliberately structure your response in 3 layers,
Yeah.
forcing yourself beyond a simple short answer. Tier 1 is the direct answer, just a clear, the concise statement addressing the question.
So if the question is, what's the biggest challenge in language learning? Tier 1 might be.
Tier 1. In my view, the biggest challenge is probably maintaining motivation over the long haul.
Yeah.
Simple, direct.
Okay. Then tier 2.
Tier 2 is elaboration or evidence. You provide some context, some support, maybe an observation. So continuing the example, I've noticed, for instance, that initial excitement often fades after, say, a few months, and learners hit these plateaus where progress feels slow.
Right, you back it up. And tier 3, this adds the complexity.
Exactly. Tier 3 is analysis or implication. You discuss the broader why, the significance, the consequence. So tier 3 might be, and this pattern suggests that ultimately fluency might be less about natural talent and, much more about developing sustainable habits and finding ways to keep the process engaging.
I see. So direct answer, elaborate evidence, analyze, imply. It's a framework for generating depth.
It's a pre-planned structure that trains your brain to think and speak in more complex, multi-clausal sentences automatically. It combats that tendency to just give short, simple answers.
That's really useful. And as you're applying that structure, the goal isn't just complexity, it's also sounding authentic, right? Sounding like yourself speaking English, not like a textbook recording.
Absolutely. If you have a certain way of thinking, maybe you're very analytical or perhaps more descriptive, let that come through. Don't try to be someone you're not.
How do you do that consciously? How do you inject your own style?
One way is through specific intellectual vocabulary. If words like paradigm, cognitive dissonance, synergy, inherent validity are part of how you think and conceptualize things in your native language, find their English equivalents and use them. They signal your specific background and style of thought.
Don't shy away from higher register words if they fit.
Exactly. And also use complex conjunctions. Words like nevertheless, consequently, whereas provided that, they don't just link ideas. They signal sophisticated relationships between ideas, contrast, cause and effect, condition.
And what about fluency markers? Like avoiding and
Well, some ums and ums are natural, but overdoing them can signal uncertainty. A really powerful technique is to replace filler sounds with a brief, strategic pause. Just a second or two of silence. It doesn't sound like hesitation. It sounds like you're thinking, formulating a thoughtful response. It conveys control.
Right, a pause can be powerful. Okay, so we've covered analysis, production.
Yeah.
What about closing the loop? Self-correction.
Crucial. We need a system, the reflective practice loop.
Yeah.
This is about consciously bridging the gap between the English, passively, and the English you actually produce spontaneously under pressure.
How do we put that loop into practice, like starting today?
Two key techniques are really effective here. First one is shadowing.
Scrubbing.
Mimicking.
Exactly. Find a short audio clip, maybe 30 seconds, of a speaker you admire who speaks clearly. Could be a news anchor, a documentary narrator, anyone professional.
Listen to the 30 seconds once. Then play it again and try to speak along with them simultaneously. Don't worry too much about understanding every word. Focus purely on mimicking their exact intonation, their rhythm, the rise and fall of their voice, the speed.
So it's training the mouth muscles almost.
Precisely. It's physical production practice, tuning your vocal apparatus to the sounds and music of English.
Okay, that's shadowing. What's the second technique? You mentioned logging lessons from productive failures.
Yes, the retrospective correction journal. This makes reflection concrete. After you've had a significant conversation or speaking practice session, take literally 2 minutes and quickly jot down 3 things.
3 things.
1. 3 specific vocabulary gaps you noticed, words or phrases you needed but couldn't find. 2. 1 grammatical mistake you know you made or suspect you made. And 3. 1 new or interesting phrase or collocation that your conversation partner, maybe a native speaker, used, which you'd like to try integrating yourself.
Ah, I like that. It turns that vague feeling of, oh, I need to improve, into really specific, actionable tasks.
Exactly. 3 words to look up, 1 grammar point to review, 1 new phrase to practice. It converts anxiety into a manageable, analytical study plan.
This whole approach, then, it really is a deep dive. Mastery isn't just about accumulating stuff. It's a process of observation, really rigorous analysis, and then consistent reflective output.
And the advantage you, as a learner, bring is that analytical lens.
Yeah.
You can step back and consciously see the patterns that native speakers often just use intuitively. Embrace that curiosity.
So prioritize that deep understanding, that analysis over just, surface level memorization.
Yes, because the confidence you'll feel won't just come from knowing words. It'll come from truly understanding how the language works, from having critically analyzed it yourself.
Which brings us back to that idea about phrasal verbs, that maybe English isn't chaotic, but a system of modulation. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other parts of English grammar that seem frustratingly complex or illogical might actually be governed by some deeper, simpler analytical principle just waiting for us, waiting for you to uncover?
That's definitely something to mull over. A question to keep in mind as you continue your own deep dives into the language.